Hey, what's up? So we're doing it. I'm in the office and I'm going to be filming my how I edit my Instagram photos. I was actually trying to do this video during today, but it got a little noisy in here. I waited until the lads left and I have now set up, ready to film in peace. So I had put out a little feeder to see if you guys were interested in seeing how I edit my Instagram pictures. Seemed like you guys did. So I thought, let's sit down, let's have a chat, go through the process and the softwares that I use. I know there's a million different ways in which you can edit out there. So we're just going to go through the current software and current process that I use to edit my Instagram pictures. It's really easy, it's really simplistic, and I think that as long as you've got the software, it's going to be something you're going to be able to do after you've watched this video. To start off, I use Lightroom CC. So if you haven't got Lightroom, it would be something that you need to download, and there's two types of Lightroom. You've got Lightroom Classic and Lightroom CC. As far as I'm aware, the subscription that I have, you just download both. You get both within the same package. I get Photoshop within that package as well. So just go on their website, take a look, and all the information will be on there. The reason I use Lightroom CC is because the workflow for me is a lot faster. The software is a lot more simplistic, and I don't need all of the whistles and bells that Lightroom Classic has on it, because I'm literally just doing some color grading and some small adjustments to make the image what I want it to be. And when you're on the go, I don't often have a desktop with me to jump on and do some extreme edits. I literally carry the iPad around, or I use my iPhone, and they're the tools that I have to edit on the go. So I've decided to go with Lightroom CC. I found it really user-friendly. I've only been using it now for about 6 months, and so you have to excuse the lingo. I'm self-taught, I've just been playing around with it. And I could be sitting here today and saying to you, this is how I edit my photos, apply my preset. But we're not going to do that, because I want to teach you the process that you would need to go through to generate your own presets. And that way, when you do apply presets, you're going to be able to adapt and adjust on top of those to suit each bespoke photo. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what preset you have, there are going to be photos that it just does not work on. So we're going to go through how I edit a photo from the start to the end, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about presets later on. I do have presets. I've never sold them. Yes, it's something that I'd be willing to do, but I want to teach you this first, because there is an old saying: catch a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you'll feed him for a lifetime. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be teaching you how to fish, and you guys can edit for a lifetime. So let's get stuck into the iPad. We're going to jump across now into here and get busy learning how to edit in Lightroom CC. So first things first, when you've opened up the app and imported your photo, you want to come over here to the Adjustments tab and open that up. Now, you'll see down the side we've got light, color effects, details, optics, and geometry. The first thing that I'm going to do is open up optics, and I'm going to remove my chromatic aberration. This just gets rid of any of the purple lines that you see around subjects. In this particular instance, I don't believe there was any, but it's just good practice just to come down and click that. So let's begin the edit. First thing that I always go to is light. So head over and open up the tab, and you can see we've got exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks. And we're just going to tweak these and just make some small changes just to start pulling some light into the image. First thing I do is pull up my exposure. We'll add a little bit of contrast in there, and then highlights as well. It's quite a dark image, so I'm going to pull the shadows up to around about there. Pull the whites down a little bit and pull the blacks up a bit as well. Now you can see the sky is slightly blown out, not much, not too bad. So I'm going to actually pull the highlights down a little bit, and you can see as I'm dragging down the highlights, it's bringing down some detailing into the clouds here. So that's starting to look quite nice. Tiny little adjustments, and it's made such a huge impact already onto that photo. By the way, when you want to view the original photo, all you literally need to do is hold your finger down on the picture and you'll get a before and after like that. I'll go to effects and I'll pump up my clarity, and I'm going to take that to about 25, and I'm also going to go down to details, and then pull my sharpening up to 60. I just have a thing about 60. I just seem to always go there. When Instagram uploads a photo, they tend to depixelate the image and you don't get a good quality. So if you over sharpen your photos when they go on the gram, it compensates a little bit so they stay looking sharp. Anyway, sometimes when I'm in this detail section, I will do the noise reduction as well as the color reduction here. And I do that because when I'm editing my skin, it just gives it a slightly softer feel. But in this image, there's no skin, so we won't be adjusting those. So we're going to close up that detail tab and I'm going to go to colors. So we'll open that up. And then we've got our HSL, which is our hue, saturation, and luminance adjustments. So these color mix down here, we're going to be working on these and we're going to be changing the hue, saturation, luminance on some of the colors. So I'm going to be focusing on the sky as we start off. And so I'm going to be clicking onto the red and I'm just going to be pulling and playing around with this to get the color that I want in the sky. So start off, I'm going to pull the saturation down on that. And I'm going to go to my orange where we're going to see most change. I want to make my sky a bit peachier. So I'm going to pull that across to around about 34. And then again, I'm going to drop the saturation on that slightly as well to 20. And then luminance is going to pull in a bit of the depth into the color. So we're going to pull that down and you'll see the sky starting to come in a little bit here. And then again, I'm going to go up to my yellow, make my yellow slightly more orangey color. Pull the saturation down a little bit on that. And then I actually quite like the blowout on the sun there. So as you can see, if I was to pull this luminance down, you'd get real harsh yellow tones because it's really pulling in the yellows into the photo. If I was to draw the luminance up and take the yellow out of the photo, you'll see it really washes it out. It looks quite nasty. So I think if we go around the 20 mark, you'll see just a small change. We've got a nice peachy feel to the sky now, but we'll continue to tweak that as we go through the edit. There's no real greens at the moment in the photo that I want to change. I do tend to come over to the violet-y, purpley colours and just drop these down on the saturation just to get rid of any of those purpley lines that surround the subject piece. So this is where we're at so far. It's starting to come together. So I'm now going to go back up to the colour grid. I'm going to adjust the temperature. In most of my photos, I like to push up the warmth of the photo. So I think we stick that around about 10. I'm going to also put the tint up a little bit to around about 4. And then I'm going to do the same for my vibrance to around about 4 as well. So it's starting to look really, really nice. I'm loving the colour of that sky. I'm going to come across to the circular marching ants tab here and open that up and then click the plus button up in the top corner, select the square gradient map. Now this is going to create a squared gradient on the photo. Now this section here that's highlighted red is going to be what's going to be adjusted, but I don't want to adjust the sky, I want to adjust the base. So we're going to grab this middle line, we're going to spin it around, so we flip it to the bottom, and I'm trying to achieve here is to put some turquoisey, greeny, bluey colours into this swimming pool, but I really want to keep the orange tones from the sun reflecting on the sea. So the lines that you can see at the top and the bottom are going to help fade in the gradient map. So I'm going to pull this top line up to the horizon and I'm going to fade this bottom line down until my centre line is lining up roughly with the edge of the swimming pool. So I'm quite happy with that. I think that's working quite nicely, and you can see the gradient fading out as it just goes into the ocean, which means we're going to keep these colours in here, but all this is going to have a nice colour grade on it. So first thing I'm going to do is head over to light, and I'm going to pump some exposure into the bottom, put some contrast in there, pull the highlights out a little bit, shadows up a tad, as well as my blacks. Oh, a little bit too much there, and then I think that looks about okay. I'm then going to close the lights up and I come into my colour, and we're going to go down to split tone here. Now this section here is what's going to put a colour into our pool. So I'm thinking I need to be around this section, so I'm going to go for that sort of turquoisey colour. So we're just going to drag across and then we're just going to push up, and it is just really like a touch and go. We're just going to play around with it. If it was the sea, I'd probably draw across to the right, make it a deeper blue, but we're a swimming pool, so and we can go a little greener, and I think that's okay, that's quite nice. So I'm really happy with the colour of the pool, but I don't like the sort of green colours you can see here on the edge of the trees. on the side of the pool, sorry. So I'm going to go back, come down to the bottom corner, click done, and then we can go and make some final tweaks on this. So still feel like there's a little bit too much green going on down in this corner. So I'm going to go into my color palette, back to my HSL, and I'm going to select the green color here. And then we're just going to drop the saturation down a little bit on that. This is where it gets a little bit more complex, but very exciting. So we're going to come to our light here, and then over here we've got curves. I'm going to select our curves, and first things first is I'm going to adjust the colors within the photo. So at the top here is the highlights of blues, down is the shadows, and you're going to be able to control pushing in and out this blue in the highlights and the shadows. So if we start off with red, if I'm to come to the bottom here and I was to drag the red down, you'll see that it's making the image very green. If I push it up, it's going to make it very red. So this is our shadow, so it would be affecting this area. So again, I like to create a little bit of an S-bend into my curve line. So let's just start off by tweaking that into all of the color grades. We'll create a little bit of an S-bend. I'm going to come across now to green. I'm going to do the same again, a little bit of an S-bend, and then again to blue. And then this is just my starting base where I like to start off, and then I'll make tweaks from there. So as you can see, it's made some color adjustments within the photo, but we need to make some further tweaks to this. So I'm going to pull the reds up slightly into the shadows. That's looking okay. And then these greens we need to play around with a bit. So I'm going to add another marker in actually here. And there as well. And you just play around and you just get a feel for the colours that you're pushing into the photo. And that looks a little bit too orangey. That's nice, I like that. And then we do the same with the blue. Kind of pull the blue into the shadows a little bit, push a little bit into the highlights. That's nice. So once we're happy with our colour adjustments, I'm now going to do an overall curves adjustment, which is this tab just here. Select that. Now you can give a nice photographic feel to your image here by again creating that S-bend in your photo by pulling down, and that creates a huge contrast here, you can see. And for me, that's a little bit too harsh. So I'm going to come to the bottom adjustment tab here, and I'm going to pull this up, and it's going to crush the blacks in the shadows, and it's going to create that sort of like vintage effect and feel to the photo, and it's going to really change the dynamic nicely. So we'll pull that up. You can see how it's crushing out the blacks, making them really soft. And just leave that around about there. That's looking quite nice now. So this is where we're at the moment. And then the final tweak I want to make is softening up this sky here. So I'm going to go back into my colours, back into the orange again, hopefully for the last time. I'm going to pull the saturation down on it a little bit. I'm going to push out the luminance just to soften it up a little bit. And it really is just tweaking it to your personal preference. Like I say, there's no real right or wrong way. It's just finding that balance that you're happy with. And there we have it. I'm pretty happy with that. Once you finish with your edit, you can open it up to a full screen so you get a full view with no distractions down the side, and hold your finger on, view the before, view the after, and there you have it. Bob's your uncle, good to go. So that's the first edit. Really happy with how that's turned out. This was actually taken in Tahiti on my way to Bora Bora. It was just a little spontaneous snap. I actually got some other photos with some birds flying in the shot as well, which was stunning, but they were slightly closer. Couldn't play around with the gradient map, and I wanted to show you that effect and how you can utilize that and use it within your edits. So I think we'll quickly go over and do an edit on a picture of myself. That way you can see how we play around with the skin tones. Jump that section of grading it. We'll just focus on the skin tone section, and then we can look at quickly how we would save that as a preset. So let's jump back into the iPad. So if we select a photo there. So this photo here has already got an edit on it. So we want to select this section down here where you can undo all of your edit. So where it says all, select that, and that takes me back to the original photo. So if we wanted to edit this picture, then we'll go through the process, which I'll whiz us through quickly now. What's up? So welcome back. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly get this to this point here that you can see on the photo, because we didn't need to go through that whole process again. So this is the before, that's the after. Now I'm going to come over to the crop here and select 4:5, because 4:5 is the crop for Instagram, and we're just going to pull the crop in. I'm looking to achieve this palm tree to be at the top of the photo, and I'm going to be center of the photo. So if we quickly make some adjustments like that, that's pretty good. Select done, and we can make some adjustments on the skin. So as you can see, I've done a base edit onto the photo, as I just mentioned, but we didn't need to go through all of the same process again. So this is where we're going to adjust the skin. We're going to go back to this HSL, and we're going to be playing around with primarily the red, orange and yellows. So we'll start off on the oranges. I know I've made some adjustments, but I want to make my skin slightly more visible, a bit softer, and I just want to change the tones just slightly. So we're going to pull down the saturation on the orange slightly to get rid of that vibrance. And then we're also going to pull down as well the luminance, and that's going to help pull in some of the highlighted sections on my face. And then I also am going to pull down this just slightly towards the reds, just to show you, as you can see, my skin changing colour, and back up towards yellows, it will slowly go green. So that's when you want to look like the Hulk. But we are going to achieve a nice skin tone by playing around with this slider primarily. So when you're happy with a skin tone, stop. So pretty much neutral for me, -2, it's looking okay. I'm going to go quickly up to my light section, and I'm going to show you that if we wanted to play around with the highlights here, you'll see that it will help pull in the tones on my skin here. However, you are adjusting the whole image. So in this instance, we're going to go back to the gradient map, select, go to the plus sign and select this one here, which is the pen, drawing it. And then this is our marker, and that's showing how big it is. So grab it and move it down will adjust the side, and sliding up will make it larger. So we want to make this quite small. This tab here shows the fade, and so we're going to select the fade again. As you can see, as I drag up and down, that's a solid and that's a soft fade. So we want to make this marker so we can adjust my face. I'm going to make it quite small. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to grab the marker and we're just going to draw on my skin where it's just slightly blown out and highlighted. So now we've selected that section of my face, we're just going to come over to the light here, and then we're just going to pull the exposure down a little bit. I'm going to pull the highlights down a little bit, and you can see that's before, that's after. You can see the drastic change. We're just pulling in some of the detail of my skin. So when we're happy with that, we go back to done, and we've just adjusted the skin without adjusting the entirety of the image. So back up to colour. Now we've done that, and we're just going to make some little tweaks again on here till we're happy. So I'm happy with how my skin tone's looking now. I'm just going to soften up my skin a little bit. So we're going to come down here to detail, which is in this section. We're going to come down to noise reduction. So I'm going to stick this up to around about 20, as you can see, and then I'm also going to do the same on the colour reduction, so around about 20. And that's just helped soften up my skin a little bit. You can see it slightly on my quad here. It looks slightly softer. And that is the before, and that's the after. So quite happy with how that's looking. We'd have a look at the before. That's the after. And there's another edit. And then we can go up to this arrow here to export and save it to our camera roll. And Bob's your uncle, ready to go. So I do hope that you found that tutorial a bit helpful. My apologies, it's the first time I've ever done a tutorial, so I wasn't sure how to film it and do the whole setup of this video. So hopefully I can make some improvements on that. If you do have any questions in how I went about editing, if I went over something too fast or I didn't explain something enough, happy to try to answer as many questions as I can. As I said, I'm still learning how to use this software. I found it to be really, really user-friendly, and I've managed to get the results that I'm looking for out of this. It's definitely up to my photography game and the overall appearance of my photos. So I'm really excited to get to learn the software a little bit more, start experimenting with CC Classic and trying to learn a few little tips and tricks as to how to speed up my process if I am editing on my desktop. I've enjoyed sharing this with you, and I hope that you found it useful. If you did, do give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, happy to show you. And like I said, this is hopefully giving you the basics on how to use this software. And so when you do start applying your presets in Lightroom and you want to make adjustments, you've got the basics there to do so. Just quickly before we do sign off, I just want to show you how to save your current edit as a preset. So if we quickly jump back into the iPad and we come over to this section here where the three dots are at the top, and it will say create preset. So we'll create this preset. And if we do use a title and we do demo, just leave this as it is, and then we will do a tick on the top corner, and then that has now saved this preset in my preset list over here. In most photos, I tend to ramp up my shadows, my blacks, pull my highlights down, ramp up my contrast a little bit, my clarity, my sharpen go up, do some tweaks so make the luminance on the orange a bit lighter, desaturate that, desaturate the yellow, pull the greens down, desaturate the greens, and they seem to be the basic edits that I always do on every photo, and then you just do the fine little tweaks just to suit that individual picture. So I hope that was useful, and I hope you did enjoy it. Like I mentioned, I might be selling some presets in the future. I haven't done any yet that I want to sell. Hopefully what I've just taught you today will be helpful. And if you haven't learned anything and you're watching this thinking, bro, this is the basics, I know, going through the basics, and if there are people that aren't used to this software, then hopefully they found it quite useful. And if you're really not used to it, it might have looked really complex and complicated. I hope it didn't. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.